that. So this conversation is on divorce and related legal issues. Um, I hate my voice, and here I am doing a great um, video on divorce so that everybody gets to hear my wonderful speaking voice on a wonderful topic that everybody in marriage and family therapy has to learn about because it's actually one of the topics that we get as marriage and family therapists to deal with the most. Um, as family therapists, we get children, we get families, but we get married couples the most. Um, and we get married couples pre divorce. So we don't get them right when they're starting to right at the beginning of the marriage. We get them right when the marriage is falling apart. So, right when it's exploding, imploding, whatever you want to call it. So, right when it's about to just become a big, bubbling, boiling pot of galactic goo, um, that's when they call us. So, we need to know the ins and outs of the legal process. We get to know what's going on with the family. We get to know what's going on with if there are children involved. And we get to know all the players. Um, and we're involved with all of them. And what I like to say is we are not just a team player, we are the team captain. We take the lead, we gather all those people, and we say, hey, these are not just numbers, these are people, these are lives, and we need to take care of them. Um, so, the first thing we need to know is what is the divorce process. So, the divorce is not just like, hey, I hate you, you hate me, let's get divorced. There's a lot of things that go and they that get involved with the divorce process. So, there's a divorce petition. It's not well, it's kind of sort of like getting married. So somebody says, I want a divorce. The other person says, yeah, I kind of want a divorce too. But there's no ring involved. What? Because, hey, jewelry is what counts. And don't we all wish we can get a ring for that too? But no, we don't. Um, so there's a divorce petition. So it's divorce papers. Um, it never goes as smoothly as we would hope. I take that back. So rewind. It sometimes goes as smoothly as we hope. Um, Sometimes it's they've already talked it out and they said this is what we agree upon. They've hashed it out. They're adults and they say yes. I'm going to serve you the papers. This is just what I want. This is what you want. And the divorce goes as they've agreed upon and they both sign and hey, the divorce has been finalized. Um, Most of the time it doesn't, and so the divorce petition is pretty much its contracts. So this phase, one person serves another. So if they both agree on it, there's somebody needs to, of course, acknowledge that it's been signed. If they refuse to sign, or if, and this is what ends up happening sometimes, one spouse is difficult to locate. So this happens if a husband or wife walks out on the relationship and the other spouse gets into a relationship and decides they want to remarry. They can't remarry until they're legally divorced. So the only way to get legally divorced is to go through the divorce petition and all of this. They have to, in good faith, look for their spouse. So they have to hire professionals. They have to actually put out uh, uh, newspaper ads searching for the estranged spouse. They have to look for hiring private investigators, the whole nine, saying that yes, in good faith, they have located, put out people to locate this person. So again, difficult to locate. You can hire professionals, process server to personally deliver the papers. Um, the spouses are not permitted to take any children out of state. So until the divorce is finalized, you are not allowed to take the children out of the state you both resided in. So if you are both residing in, say, New York, when when you guys are married, if the children are removed from the state of New York, it's can be considered sort of kidnapping. We will talk about that at a later point. So the divorce petition response. Um, so the other spouse is known as the respondent, although it's not required. They can file a response to the petition saying he or she agrees. Filing a response shows both parties agree to the divorce. That makes it more likely the case will proceed without a court hearing. Um, if there's a court hearing, so saying that you disagree with it, it can delay the process and it costs more. If the response is not filed within 30 days, the petitioner can request a default be entered by the court. And then responding spouse can also use the response to disagree with the information presented in the petition. So if you choose to say that you do not agree with anything that's in the petition, you can say, I don't agree with this, and that's your response. But you have to say, I disagree with it. Just don't not sign it. Just say, I disagree. Um, so then final steps are the disclose information regarding the assets, liabilities, income, expenses. If the divorce is uncontested and the spouses can agree on the terms of divorce, it's only a bit of more paperwork. So again, there's a little bit more paperwork to do. The court enters a judgment. The divorce is final. The marriage is not formally dissolved, and the spouses cannot remarry until the end of the state's waiting period. So, depending on what state you are legally divorced in, legally married in, you have a waiting period. If there are any disputes that cannot be resolved, court hearings may be there may be a trial afterwards. So if you are disputing the divorce, if you are contesting the divorce in any way, if you said I didn't agree to the terms of the divorce that were on paper, then you have to wait longer than what you had in that divorce paperwork. So now that's just that one part there. So now that's not including what's going on with children in custody. So the worst part with children, of course, is we start to wonder what are some of the effects of custody and things like that on them. But so how did the courts decide on custody for children? Some of the main things is the courts will deem the physical and mental health of parents. So, are the parents physically and mentally capable of taking care of the children? Are the parents able to take care of any special needs that the children have? So, if you have a child who has special needs, can the parents take care of and meet any of those special needs? Is there a stable home environment? And again, I will get into that further. And if the child is old enough, so again, this also depends on the state, but we usually say about I think it's around age 10 to 12. The child can start making their own wishes to the judge. So if the child says, "No, I want to live with mom," they will take that into consideration. If they always say, dad's never home, dad doesn't talk to me, dad doesn't, pay any attention to me, they'll take that into consideration. In about 22 states, so they'll also take into consideration things Other factors such as emotional ties and relationships between the child, his parents, and I'm saying his as in general, so I'm not saying just boys, siblings, families, and household members, and other caregivers. So let's say this is a large family, and the child lives with not just the parents, but grandparents as well. And removing that child from that home would now isolate them from siblings, cousins, and grandparents. Now this is something that he's going from an extended family to maybe just, him and whoever his single parent would be then. Is this something that we want to do? Um, the capacity of the parent to provide a safe home, adequate food, clothing, and medical care. Yes, the parent, you know, they have a safe home, they can provide medical care, adequate food, clothing. Those are, of course, the basis of all necessities that we have to meet. Mental and physical health needs of the child. Of course, that is one of the main components that we need to meet. Mental and physical health of the parents, we already said that prior, and the presence of domestic violence in the home. So again, so if there is at any point a history where it was documented that there was possible domestic violence of one parent to another, or one parent to the child, that would actually be taken into consideration, that that parent may not get custody um, of the child without further investigation. Um, and that's again for the safety of the child. Um, again, without further investigation. If it's unfounded, the parent may get the custody of the child with some more supports. So when we say more supports, they may get something like family based to come into the home to ensure more safety, or um, children and youth, Department of Public Welfare, or something like that, again, to do safety checks in the home. Where am I? Oh, get my stuff confused here. So, some of the reasons why we would require, or family therapy is necessary for divorce proceedings, is specifically for the relationship with children, and it's just because children kind of get lost in the shuffle, um, and parents get so frustrated with the court process, frustrated with each other, that sometimes they use the child as the go-between. They use the child um, as a messenger. They use a child to gather information. Um, they use a child to as a weapon against the other parent sometimes. Um, and marriage and family therapists can help prevent that, or can help remind the parents that that's not the role of the child. Um, the role also of a marriage and family therapist can also be helpful to help explain to the child what the divorce proceeding actually is, and help them understand that it's not their fault. Because as children, they automatically start believing that it's their fault, or they played some role in the divorce. Help them in any questions that they may have. Um, in doing family sessions, it does help to tell the children, have the parents inform the child that they're still loved, um, and that they're still going to be loved no matter what. Um, and just to make sure that the parents are still um, involved in school activities, because what ends up happening sometimes is one tends to back away from some of those school activities, um, just because of the fact that they're they're still kind of isolating themselves from the way their role used to be, or again, because of anger from the relationship. So, the role of the marriage and family therapist is again as that sort of team captain to say, hey, you're not, you may be angry with your partner, but you're still a parent, and you got to kind of come together and still show your role as a parent for these children. Because sometimes we need to be reminded. We're still adults, and we're still human. We make these mistakes. And it's helpful to get a reminder every once in a while that we make mistakes and we need help. So, as family therapists, we run with the AAMFT Code of Ethics. Um, so, when it comes to being subpoenaed and talking to lawyers and things like that, um, I think the two main components, of course, is definitely keep a copy of the Code of Ethics with you, but um, the two I would think to really keep abreast of is 1.13, which is relationships with third parties. So, marriage and family therapists, upon agreeing to provide services to a person, an entity at the request of a third party, clarify to the extent feasible and at the outset of service the nature of the relationship with each party and the limits of confidentiality. So this one, when talking to lawyers, when you're talking to your clients, you're going to have them sign releases. So if you're talking to the clients and you're talking to the clients about what you will, if they're going to say, oh, I need you to speak to my lawyers, you're going to remind them there are things you cannot say to their lawyers. You are there for them. You are there for for your children. You are not there to speak about what goes on in sessions. If they are upset about something, that is fine. Um, and most of the times you can say, this is for the family and you are not comfortable being subpoenaed. If at some point you do have to be subpoenaed, um, there is the, of course, understandable point of saying there are things that due to HIPAA violations. So, of course, HIPAA being Health Information Portability, Privacy and Portability Act. So this, of course, protects you and protects your clients from sharing a whole lot of information. So again, you are going to have releases signed. There is a lot of information that you will not be giving, not be providing. And a lot of that information is to protect you and to protect those clients. So there will be information, of course. If the information is information about abuse, then yes, you can share that. But if there's information about, you know, her saying that the husband, called her fat one day, that's not necessary. Um, those are things that are not going to be beneficial in the court process. Those are things that are just her wanting to be uh, wanting to kind of have somebody to be on her side. And again, I'm just saying her and him because at this point, I need to put people there. Um, as clinicians, we are going to have people who want us to be on their sides. And sometimes we do have to be very neutral. And that's going to have to be our role sometimes. And we're going to have to remember, especially in court, that our role is to be neutral, and our role for Um, our role is as a therapist. Our role is not to um, come, not to uh, pit one against the other. So the information that we are to provide is for clinical reasons only. If we are to be subpoenaed, it should be for reasons of it should be reasons of, you know, severe reasons of like domestic violence. And but that's my own personal spin on it. I am lucky enough to be in a practice where we have a legal team, and if I get subpoenaed, and I've only been subpoenaed once, and when I went to court, I asked the judge, "Are you ordering me to, testify?" And he said, "Yes, I'm ordering you." So I had to testify. Um, Until then, I did not have to say anything until he said, "I am ordering you to testify," which sometimes is probably some of your best bet. Um, your only other thing is, I would say, is your 3.11, which is the public statements. So, marriage and family therapists, because of the ability to influence and alter the lives of others, exercise special care when making public their professional recommendations and opinions through testimony or other public statements. So those are again my two like specific ones that I would say make sure you hold those two to heart. Remember, we're not public figures, but in that role, especially in a court, we have to hold to a certain set of standards. Um, so in that case, if you feel that you have to, look at the judge and say, are you ordering me to testify? Um, but remember, what is the most important thing you have to say? If they're saying, if they're asking you if, client A called client B fat, then you don't really have to answer that because that's not going to settle anything. But if it's something where, client A is going to, if client A is causing severe bodily harm to client B and children, then yes. Um, I hope with this you have gotten a little bit more information on divorce and divorce proceedings and how to go forth with that. If you have any questions, you can reach me, of course, on Twitter and, you know, North Central University's email page. Okay. Thank you. Have a good night.